Hello again everybody, and welcome to this edition of Jersey Shore Pondscapes videos. Today we're talking about bead filters, okay? This particular model right here is a really popular model. It's made by a company called Aqua Ultraviolet, and it's called an Ultima 2. I want to thank the guys at Waterworld Monmouth Feed in Farmingdale, New Jersey for lending this to me so I can do this video and tell you how these things work. They're great guys over there. Please check them out. They have all kinds of supplies. They're very knowledgeable. Definitely a great place to go and get your pond supplies. So, a bead filter, okay, what is it? So basically it's a pressurized tank, okay, and there's going to be 3 million little black beads inside here, all right? They can be white, they can be black, doesn't really matter. They're little black cylinders, okay? This whole tank is filled up about 2/3 of the way with these beads. And what happens is you have an inlet, an outlet, and a waste. So as your pump, an external pump like this, or a sump pump in the pond, but we prefer to use something like this, we'll pull water directly from the pond, out the pump, into the inlet. Okay, the water goes down through this filter, goes through all these beads, and then gets sent out the return pipe, which can then go to a UV light, you know, a waterfall, whatever. Okay. On top here we have what's called a multi-valve, and this valve, what it does is it allows you to adjust how the water is going through this tank and how it's being discharged, okay? So there's filter, rinse, recirculate, backwash, closed, winter, and waste, okay? So for example, when we're in filtration, the water's coming in from the pump, going through the whole filter tank, through all those beads, and then goes out back to your pond. If we want to clean this filter, we have a function called backwash. So we turn this handle around and we put it on backwash. And what happens then is the water comes in from your pump, goes down through all the media, and then comes out the waste line, okay? So this pipe here will not go back to your pond. This you're going to want to do out in the yard or wherever, okay? This is waste, where all the mud and sludge and whatever that you're cleaning out of here, pumping out of here, is going to go, okay? So again, there's different positions for this valve depending on what we want to do. So typically you're going to have this pump set up, this filter set up where they pump like this, all right? This happens to be a Performance Pro Artesian 2. These are great pumps for ponds. They're very energy efficient. They are costly, but they save a lot of money in electricity compared to a pool pump, which would cost, half this price. I have a whole other video online about these pumps. Please check it out, okay? There's a lot of good information there about how to use these pumps and why we use these pumps, okay? But basically, if you set up a pump like this, what's going to happen is you're going to have this suction pipe going out into your pond, where the end of the pipe we're going to have a strainer basket, okay? This is a big one. This is a 3-inch. I just don't have a 2-inch handy. And then a check valve, okay? And a check valve is a unit that's only going to allow water to flow in one direction. It has a flap inside the valve that opens when we pull water through it, but when we turn off the pump, the pressure in the pipe, the water comes back and it closes that valve. So what that does is it holds all the water in the pipe back up to our pump, and that keeps our pumps primed, okay? Which means it stays full of water, so when we plug it back in, it can take off again, okay? Strainer basket, check valve, pipe to pump, and then from your pump, we're coming out into the inlet of the filter, okay? Now, these pumps are great, okay? They pump a lot of water, but they don't have a high head pressure, okay? They're not made to pump water on your roof. They're only made to recirculate the pond water, pump through the filter and back to waterfall, whatever, okay? So for that reason, they don't have a ton of pressure. They can move a volume of water, but not with a lot of pressure. Now these tanks, with all these beads in here, can get dirty quickly, okay, depending on the environment of your pond. But they work really well. They pick up a lot of sediment and debris, okay? So when we go to backwash this filter, we have to make sure that we do this often, okay? Being that these pumps do not have a lot of pressure to really churn up all that, beads and dirt and mud in here and spit it all out, okay? We want to do it more regularly so that all that sediment doesn't build up in here too much, okay? And I mean, quite simply, the more we clean our filter, the cleaner our filters, the cleaner our pond's gonna be, okay? So I have run into problems with these filters where people don't backwash very often, and the sediment builds up in here so much that it gets so caked up and thick in here that when they go to backwash, the pumps can't clean it very well, okay? And it just becomes more and more and more packed inside here, all right? So we'll talk about the maintenance of these things too, but the key point that I want to stress to you is that backwash these things often, okay? When you backwash, you should be able to get kind of close to this thing and hear the beads churning around inside, okay? If you don't hear all those beads, we're probably packed up with a lot of garbage and the beads can't move, all right? So as long as you put this on backwash, you turn on your pump and you can, hear those beads moving around in here and the water's coming out, you're doing good. Now, when you backwash, you're gonna see some dirty water coming out at first, okay? And then it'll start to clear a little bit, right? So what I do is I go from backwash for a few minutes until it starts coming clearer. Then I go to rinse, and I put it on rinse for a couple seconds and let it go until it comes out clearer. Then I go back to backwash, then I go back to rinse. And depending on how dirty this is and how often you do it, will determine how long you need to keep it on backwash and how long you need to keep it on rinse, okay? If you can't see the water coming out of your pipe at the end to see how dirty it is, there's a little plastic cylinder, clear cylinder that connects to this tank, and you can see the water, as it's going through this cylinder, how dirty it is, okay? Okay, so make sure that we backwash these as often as possible. Just keep in mind that when you backwash, we're draining water from the pond, okay? So if you do it more often, okay, you'll need less water to clean it, right? You're gonna put it on, let it run for a minute or two, and then it'll be good, okay? If you don't clean these things often, when you go to backwash, you may have to run 10 minutes and drain a quarter of your pond by the time this starts coming out clear, and hope that all that sediment in there is coming out, okay? So now let's talk a little bit about what's inside, all right? I showed you all those little beads, okay? So what happens, I took this out already. This is basically what you will find inside these filters. Now, when we lift this up, there's a strainer basket here, okay? This is really important that this stays on this head, because if we don't, then all the beads can come out and be pumped back to your pond, okay? But this has a little standpipe here, which sits down on top, and it basically goes right on top of this pipe, okay? So we see here, there's outlets here for water, and there's outlets all through these little fingers. All these little fingers come off, okay? They screw out, and they're all full of holes. All right, so you know water can come through all this stuff when you're backwashing and rinsing and filtering. These fold up. Okay, all these things will fold up. So when you need to put this thing back into your filter tank, right, you're going to fold up all these little fingers and pull them out. Okay. Now, if this tank should get really dirty, all right, and you put it on backwash, and you know you think it's cleaning, but tomorrow your water flow slows down again. You backwash again, and then a few hours later you notice the volume, the water flow on your waterfalls, whatever, is slowing down again. We know this tank is really dirty. Okay, really dirty. So what I do, there's two rings, okay, that come together that seal this lid and hold this lid on. Okay, there's two screws on either side, one over here, one on the bottom. We unscrew them. We take that off. We can take this off, and then inside here you're going to see all the sludge. Okay, here's a picture of what it could look like in there when it's not being taken care of properly. All right. So at that point, what we need to do is take this out. Okay. Now, this is set down inside this filter. There's also a drain plug right here that we can turn and drain the water out of here. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And I say that because if this thing is so caked up and clogged up with mud, when you open up this drain, no water's going to come out of it because it's all going to be packed with mud and sludge and everything else, okay? So this is down inside the tank. We need to get this out. Sometimes if we leave water in the tank and we can move it and we can wiggle it and we can pull it up and then pull all these fingers up, raise all these fingers up, pull it out, okay? Take these fingers all apart, clean them with a water hose, maybe bang them so all the little holes are clear and clogged, right? Clean them all out with a water hose, spray this whole thing down, spray water inside, spray water all around, clean this whole thing. And then what I do is I have a cup, like a large cup, that I can get inside here and just start scooping this stuff out. My little trick to clean all these beads, I take two 5-gallon buckets and I have a net, like a netting that I get out of, basically I use one out of a skimmer. I have a nice big square net out of a skimmer that I put over the two buckets. So I put a bucket, and a net in between. And as I scoop the beads out of here, I dump it into my net. I take a few scoops, put it in the net, take the water hose, clean the whole thing, spray it all full of water till those beads are clean. Then I dump the beads out into a 5-gallon bucket. Okay? And we keep doing that until you have all this stuff out. Once all these beads are out and everything's clean, spray the whole inside of the tank, clean the whole inside of the tank out, okay? Dump it out, get it all nice and clean, like all brand new again, right? Then we're going to take our little piece here, and we're going to put it back down inside, open up all these fingers again, open this up, set it in here. One sec, almost there. Okay. Now, we're going to set this back down inside of our tank, right in the center, okay, so that the pipe is right in the center of our hole, all right? Because remember now we need to put this piece back on, and this black pipe has got to go down on the top of that one, okay? Now, we need to put all the beads back into this tank, okay? What I recommend doing is getting another cup, a small cup, just a little cup. Sometimes if I go to lunch and I have like a Gatorade or a soda, right? I get a little can of Coke or something, not a can, a bottle, okay? I'll cut the top off of it so that I can now take that cup and put it down on top of this pipe, because we don't want to dump all the beads back in here and have them go down this pipe. So I put a cup over it, okay? That to me is the easiest thing. You can put a little plastic bag over it, put a rubber band on it or something, but we need to seal this, cover this, so the beads don't go down inside, okay? Like I said, for me, it's a little cup. I put that right on top, get that in here, dump all my beads back in, little at a time, so they don't go all over the place. And then once that's all set, then we can put our top back on. Okay, get our top set nice and straight, nice and level. And then we get these clamps and the screws, and we put this all back on around here, and you're good to go. Now, these are all unions on the side. Okay, so if you all have PVC pipe all coming in here, you just unscrew these unions, and then you can, you know, take it apart, and your pipes are still there. All right, but your, you know, unions can just be screwed back on when you put this all back together. Okay, so that's that. Now, hopefully throughout the season, if you keep up with regular maintenance on these, you will not have to take this all apart and clean all these beads, okay? If you backwash these things regularly, I don't want to tell you exactly how often you need to clean it. It really depends on how dirty your pond is, okay? I do have some clients that I go every 2 weeks and backwash this thing. And I know that there's times that in between those 2 weeks, the client might go out and do it himself once, okay? So I'm going to tell you, if you do it at least once a week, great. But I would say at least once every 2 weeks, clean these out. If your pond is really dirty, you're going to have to do it more often. If you are setting this up on a pond that's already existing and it's really dirty, right? So you go to the store and they say, you need a new filter, you need to buy one of these. Okay, so you're going to put this on a dirty pond. All right, you're going to have to backwash this maybe every couple days at first, until it starts catching up and with the pond and cleans all the pond. Once your pond is clean, then you don't have to do it every 2 days or something, or every day. You can do it, you know, once a week, twice, once every 2 weeks or something, okay? But initially, if the pond is dirty, you're going to have to clean these more. I can't stress that enough, to backwash, 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 okay? Make sure these tanks stay clean. Now, at the end of the season, for us here in New Jersey, for me, I close down all my ponds for the winter. I don't run them through the winter. That'll be on another video on seasonal care. You can check that out. But I'll tell you why and my theories and how I do things then. But right now, in November, early December, the latest, I'm closing down all my ponds. And when I close down my ponds, I take these filters apart. I do what I just said. I take out all the beads, I clean everything, I wash everything down, I put it all back together. It's like a brand new filter again. So come next spring, all I do is hook up my pump, get everything connected, and turn it on, and I've got a brand new filter ready to go. Okay? I don't want to leave all that sludge and sediment and muck in here all winter. It just rot and stink, okay? So when I close the pond in November, I clean these filter tanks out, all right? And then come spring, we're good to go. We're brand new, ready to roll, okay? So that's that. Now, one other little thing I'd like to talk about just briefly is I don't really use these filters all the time, okay? Only in some instances where ponds that are already existing and I have to retrofit something, I can put these in. Or if somebody has an old one and something's not working or broken or whatever, and we need to update it, we'll put in a new one, okay? All my ponds, I use 4-inch bottom drains, and I gravity feed out into external filter tanks, you know, in the ground, okay? Sometimes I will use these filters in addition to mine. I don't have to. My ponds stay beautifully clear and everything with just my system. But if I know the client is, just wants the best, they are going to have a heavy fish load and we need some extra biofiltration, or maybe they had one in an old pond and they have it, well, we might as well use it. Like, right, why not, right? These things are expensive, so let's use it, okay? So in my system, I'll have the 4-inch bottom drains in the pond, gravity feed all the dirt and sludge into a filter tank outside. It all gets filtered first in that tank. Then the pump pulls it out of that tank, the clean water, all right? And then we can pump into here. And this works incredibly well as just a polishing system, right? Just to polish the water. And this works great for the biological activity inside because at this time it's really clean, right? So the maintenance on it is next to nothing, all right? I mean, you really don't have to backwash these nearly as much. Still a good idea to do it. It never hurts. But for me, I have a couple clients where I just go and open and close the pond for them. So I go in the spring, I open it. They do the maintenance themselves all summer. And I go in the, November to close it. And I will tell you 100% certainty that 9 times out of 10, okay, when I clean these filters out after my gravity-fed filter system, these things are totally clean. And I know some of my clients, they maintain it and will backwash it regularly, but I'm guessing maybe once a month they'll do it, okay? When they clean my tank out, if it's once a month, maybe every 6 weeks or so. But at the end of the year in November, when I come to close down the whole system, I'll open up this tank and I look inside and I go, whoa, man, look at it, it's clean. It's beautiful. So the maintenance on it is so much better, okay? As opposed to ponds that just have this filter and nothing else, and they're pumping water directly out of the pond through the pump right into here. This is going to get really dirty, all right? Where my ponds, all the sediment and sludge is in my other filter, okay? And we're just pumping clean water through here, all right? So that's the difference. Now, let me just briefly explain about when I was saying about using this for a biological filter because of all the beads, okay? So in a filter system, and I will have a whole nother video on this, but just briefly, the whole idea of a biological filter is to provide media that, there's 2 types of bacteria, basically, that are going to grow on this media. The first type of bacteria turns ammonia into nitrites, okay? The second bacteria turns the nitrites into nitrates. Now, ammonia is toxic, okay? It can kill the fish if the ammonia levels build up. Nitrites are also toxic, okay? It's a byproduct of this process of the bacteria from ammonia to nitrites. And then finally the nitrites into nitrates, okay? Nitrates are far less toxic. They can build up in the pond and it can become dangerous if they reach really, really high levels. But for the most part, nitrates are far less toxic than the ammonia and nitrites. Nitrates are also used as like a plant fertilizer. The plants absorb nitrates, which help to keep the levels down in the pond. Or we can do water changes in the pond to keep those levels of nitrates down. But my point is, in order for all that bacteria to function and to do this whole chemical process in your pond, the bacteria needs a clean environment to grow. It needs an oxygen-rich environment to grow, okay? If you have this tank and it's all full of muck and mud and sludge, okay, that bacteria is not going to survive and it's not going to do its job, okay? So your ammonia levels will build up and your nitrates and everything are going to build up in your pond. So it's really important to keep these filters clean so that we do get the proper biological filtration, okay? If we're not getting biological filtration out of it, then all we're doing is collecting the mud out of the pond, right? The sludge out of the pond, which is called mechanical filtration, all right? So we want a little bit of both. We want to find that middle ground. We want some of the mechanical filtration where we're pulling the mud and sediment out of the water, but we also want to be able to provide a nice environment for the bacteria to grow in here to produce the biological filtration, okay? So again, if it's nice and clean, we're backwashing, we're accomplishing the mechanical filtration, we're removing the sediment, but we're also allowing the bacteria to grow in here to provide the biological filtration, okay? If it gets all caked solid full of muck and garbage and stuff, we have no biological filtration going on, all right? So I'm going to wrap up here. Just another thing, this comes with a little gauge, a little pressure gauge on this filter. In our use on the pond with these pumps, this really doesn't have very much relevance at all. I mean, don't pay attention to it at all. So it's nothing important. You don't have to worry about the pressures on these things. We're not pumping high pressure, you know, through these pumps like we would for like a swimming pool or something. Just make sure that your flow rate coming out, you know, to your waterfall or wherever you're going is running well and it's sufficient, and you'll know we're doing fine. These tanks, you can find information online or at your local pond supply store, such as Water World and Mama Feed in Farmingdale, New Jersey. As far as to what size pump to connect with what size filter tank, they'll be glad to help you out with that. You can look online and see the flow rates through these, but these can move a lot of water, okay? One more thing as far as flow rate through here. If just, let's say, a filter like this is recommended for 2,500 to 5,000 gallons of water per hour, okay? Keep in mind that the faster you pump the water through here, the less it's going to filter, right? You have this tank and you have water coming in here and it's just flowing through here nicely and discharging out. It's going to filter better than to pump, you know, 10,000 gallons an hour through here and the water comes in and goes and goes out, okay? You want a nice, you know, you want a little dwell time so that the water can settle and collect all the sediment out before it goes back, rather than coming in and going, okay? So just keep that in mind. You know, if you're picking out a pump, you want to kind of be in that middle range, right? You don't want to be too slow through here because you need to turn enough water volume over in your pond, but you don't want to go too fast where it's just going to spit all the crap back out again. All right? Okay, so I think we're all good. I think I gave you a good idea of how these filters work and how to clean them, maintain them, what's inside, and thank you very much for checking out my video. Please hit the like button if it helped you out today, and subscribe to my channel if you're interested in a lot more information on koi ponds and waterfalls. I'm going to have a whole mess of videos out here. It'll talk to you about just about everything you're ever going to want to know. And check out my website, pondscapesandmore.com. I have a ton of different pictures and information about all the ponds I've built over the last 25 years. So please check it out. Thanks for watching our video, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Have a great day.